mentions the George Carlin tribute, I like to explain that Whoopi, as I came off stage, told me I was brilliant and fantastic. And then 2 weeks later told me I was not allowed to use that as a blurb. Vicki asked that I bring something that I had not performed before here, that it be actual writing on the page. And I found out I was going to be on with Bruce. And let me say that I'm a little offended that nobody has offered to buy my shirt. Because I was going to be on with Bruce, I got all panicky and I wanted to show off, and I was going to read to you from the Modern Depression Guidebook, which is it's the opposite of a self-help book that I wrote. But the truth is that would not have served me in any way. So instead I'm going to read to you from my new novel, Laughs Last. And it is not autobiographical. It is about a stand-up comic and his relationship with his grandfather. And while I was for a time a stand-up comic, it is not my grandfather. Also, anyone familiar with my work, and really who isn't, will know that a lot of my stories involve nested flashbacks. I work with the nature of memory. The present is constantly informed by our past. So this is the whole book is told in nested flashbacks. So that should make it confusing to listen to. 2004. The room applauded eagerly as Damon walked onto the stage, smiling. He shook the MC's hand, leaned in to whisper his gratitude into the young man's ear. He moved to the microphone. 1994. Backstage, Damon bounced on the balls of his feet, building his energy. He shook out his hands to release tension. He listened to the voice he knew so well, announcing his credits, his upcoming gigs, and then, making his national television debut, he heard the voice speak his name. Under the swell of applause, he moved onto the flat, waxed floor of the studio. He moved directly to his mark behind the microphone. He waited patiently for the applause to subside so that he could begin his set. For a moment, the first words he was to speak escaped him, creating a moment of absolute silence. Somebody chuckled. Damon looked up at the sound a bit irritably. That caused somebody else to laugh. Damon shifted his focus toward that sound. The quiet exchange caused a ripple of laughter to pass through the crowd. Damon shrugged. Maybe I won't tell any jokes tonight. Just wait them out. You'll pop the room. The room laughed and he began his set. I love being back on the East Coast, he told them. I grew up in Ragnarok, New Jersey, the town where Norse gods go to die. The year after we moved in, their mill closed, so they burned my mother as a witch. This was upsetting to our family as she had nothing to do with the mill closing. And there were so many better reasons. The audience laughed. They laughed in all the right places, though not quite as hard or as loud as Damon was used to hearing them. He wondered if it was a trick of the acoustics or if he was lost in some strange, over-focused state, unable to hear properly. His opening run of jokes usually got an applause break when he wrapped it up with Odin, the one-eyed king of the Norse gods who could see all of creation, but could not tell how far away any of it was. That day, in Letterman's studio, it got the laugh he usually got with the introduction of the premise. The studio was chilly, cold even. Still, he felt sweat trickling down his rib cage, tickling down under his shirt. While he performed, Damon was peripherally aware of Mr. Letterman glancing through blue index cards. 1983. Moving back up the aisle toward the bar of the Improv, Damon saw the smiling faces, the audience members grinning at him, giving him thumbs-up signals. One young man held a hand up for Damon to high-five as he went past. The woman who owned the club smiled as he walked by, followed him out to the bar. She said, "You can start calling in for spots." That was it. No congratulations, no welcome packet. Damon left the club in a dazed sense of elation. His ears seemed to buzz with the excitement of it. He found himself out of breath, his heart pounding as though he had run a race while downing amphetamines. His mind sped forward through images of a future that would unspool before him effortlessly now. He was a regular at the improvisation. He was a professional stand-up comic in New York. Soon he would be on Carson. Then he would sign autographs everywhere he went. He would play Vegas. He would own a penthouse apartment in Manhattan. He would date supermodels. He would deposit checks with half a dozen zeros on them. He would buy grass by the ounce instead of the eighth. He would fly first class everywhere, and a private helicopter would take him to and from the airport. Damon Blazer was allowed to call in for spots each week. He was on his way and nothing could stop him. Soon his parents would see the value of what he was doing. Papa would be so proud when he found out. 1994. David Letterman walked over to shake Damon's hand and thank him. Then he turned to the camera and threw to a commercial. Damon felt shaken, confused. He felt he should apologize for the set, but he wasn't sure it had been as bad as it felt. Letterman said, "You're pretty funny, kid," and then walked away back toward his desk. A young woman in a headset came and took Damon by the elbow. She led him back to the backstage area. As they walked, he felt disconnected from the world around him. He asked, "Was that okay?" "Yeah," she said, "it was fine. We'll bump up the laughs a little in post." Oh. "Thank you." She let go of his arm at the end of the hallway that had a dressing room. He moved down the hall, turning into what he thought was his room, found himself face to face for a moment with Elvis Costello. They looked at one another blankly for a moment. Damon said sorry and moved on in search of the proper doorway. He felt a little bit nauseated. 2004. Damon came off stage. He heard the roaring applause of the Bahia Resort's audience and saw only Cynthia's beaming face as she moved toward him and took him in her arms. "If I'd known pregnancy was going to make you that funny, I'd have gotten knocked up a long time ago." "Really? It was good?" Damon searched his memory, tried to get his bearings, but he found he could remember nothing at all about the set he'd just performed. Moments of his personal history shifted and melded in his mind. A set at the Improv, the train ride home afterward, his first Letterman appearance. He couldn't seem to remember a moment of the performance he had just given seconds earlier. "Damon," Cynthia said very seriously, "if your grandfather were alive today, he would have called it your bar mitzvah." Hearing that, Damon choked. He coughed to cover the reaction. He knew what Cynthia meant, and more importantly, he knew that Cynthia knew how his mind worked, knew his history and his thoughts, his memories and his references. Bless you. 1982. Damon sat beside the hospital bed, feeling the hard plastic of the chair's arm, scratching at the fake leather textured surface with a thumbnail. "Can I ask you something, Papa?" "You know you can." Damon shrugged. "Sometimes I'm afraid you'll get mad at me, that I'll ask you something I should already know." "You're this worried about my sensitivities? Really, kid?" "I guess, yeah. You gave me Alzheimer's to make people laugh." It's a reference to a joke earlier in the book. I failed to cut. "Sorry about that. I won't do the joke anymore. If it got a laugh, we both know you'll do it again at some point. You might as well do it with my blessing." "It's fine, Damon. What do you want to ask?" "Do you think I'm ready to get a showcase at the Improv, at Catch a Rising Star, at the real clubs?" "Sure. I mean, I've been doing pretty well at Mickey Tam's every week for a couple of months now." "I'm sure you have. And I'm writing material pretty steadily. I got a solid 15, maybe 20. You can stop selling me, kid. Go showcase." "What if I blow it, though?" "What if, kid, you showcase. It goes great and you get in, or it goes bad and you showcase again. It's a fucking nightclub in New York. It's not your career. You got hundreds of shows ahead of you. Thousands. Give it a shot." Damon tried to breathe in the idea of thousands of shows ahead of him. He tried to imagine the scope of time that made a career. He said, "You really think I should?" "Yeah, Papa."